I wanted to inform you, because we've covered Native American political prisoner Leonard Peltier, who has been in jail for 47 years. I've interviewed his attorney twice. Bernie Sanders strongly supports releasing Leonard Peltier from prison. Quote, "I continue to support efforts to free him," the Vermont senator said of the 77-year-old indigenous rights activist in a new letter obtained by HuffPost. Bernie Sanders strongly supports releasing Native American rights activist Leonard Peltier from prison, according to a letter to a constituent obtained by the Huffington Post. Quote, "As you know, Leonard Peltier has spent over 40 years of his life in prison, despite the fact that the government has admitted they do not know who is responsible for the crime he was convicted of," Sanders said in the June 8th email. Despite national and international campaigns to free Peltier, he remains incarcerated, where he continues to advocate for the rights of Native people. "For this reason, I have and will continue to strongly support petitions for Leonard Peltier's release," Sanders concludes. A constituent passed the letter to the Huffington Post. Sanders' spokesperson confirmed its legitimacy, but did not provide further comment. The letter means that Sanders is the fourth U.S. senator in recent months to advocate for President Biden to give clemency to the now 77-year-old ailing activist and send him home. The others are Senator Patrick Leahy, also of Vermont, Brian Schatz of Hawaii, and Mazie Hirono of Hawaii. If you haven't heard of Peltier, think of him as America's longest-serving political prisoner, a fall guy that the FBI and U.S. Attorney's Office desperately needed after failing to figure out who murdered two FBI agents in a 1975 shootout on Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. And if you don't know about this, one of the lead prosecutors who convicted Peltier has since called for him to be released, saying basically they messed up and they don't actually have evidence that he fired the guns that killed these FBI agents. Full disclosure, I reached out to Bernie Sanders' press person weeks ago after I interviewed Peltier's lawyer, asking, does Bernie Sanders call for Leonard Peltier to be released? Because at the time, Hawaii Senator Mazie Hirono became the third U.S. senator. Sanders' spokesman didn't get back to me. So I don't know why Bernie is only responding to a constituent about this and hasn't publicly called for Biden to release Leonard Peltier. Peltier is not in good health. He had COVID. He now suffers from symptoms of long COVID, and he's 77 years old. So not only he should have never been in prison for this, but he should have been released by now. Let me play a part of my interview with his attorney, the second clip, Colin.
We all saw this coming, the COVID. BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, has not done a great job of protecting those that are incarcerated. And look, it's a tough job. You've got a lot of people jammed into a small area, but they could have done a better job, and we saw it coming. They were slow to get vaccines out, and once they got the prisoners vaccinated, they were not getting the booster shots. I mean, this is a funny story, but it's all this kind of catch-22 scenario where I'm asking, what does it take to get a booster? You know, why are they not getting boosted? Well, the response is because you have to ask. Okay, who do we ask? How do I ask? What is your protocol for doing that? We can't tell you. Okay. What is this? Some scene from Joseph Heller novel. This is crazy. And so that Leonard in this scenario in this situation was finally contracted COVID. Shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone. What was difficult though was that I couldn't get any information. Their protocol, initially I was told he was put into a medical unit. What I learned was not a medical unit. He was put into an isolation cell in his unit. That's not the same as a medical unit. What they were doing was taking temperature once a day. Well, that's not treatment.
Right.
That's not caring for someone. It took days for him to get a cup so that he could drink water out of the sink. It took even longer for him to get a spoon so that he was being fed peanut butter in packets, to even get a spoon so that he's not trying to just chew on the packet and get some peanut butter out of there. That's not how you treat human beings. So basically, he had to get through this himself, and eventually he did, luckily, because with his multiple health issues, he could have died, and no medical personnel would be surprised by that for someone his age and in his health to succumb to COVID. But he didn't, fortunately, and it was put back into the population. What he's told me is that there are prisoners there who won't tell staff that they've got COVID symptoms because they know that the response is you're going to go to an isolation cell and have your temperature checked. So they'd rather gut it out and stay where they are. You're actually in a better position. But then that puts everyone else at risk because now you're going to the chow hall or, mingling with other prisoners and just spreading COVID. Eventually, Leonard did get a booster shot, but it was after he had already had COVID, and he still has the effects from it. So, he's not in the shape that he was in while he was suffering through COVID, but, there are long COVID symptoms that still hang on, the fatigue and the difficulty breathing, these kind of things that you typically hear about as kind of the after effects or continuing effects of COVID. He suffers from those. And, there's no, as we've learned from this disease, there's no guarantee that you don't get it again or again. So, the longer he stays in there, the more the greater likelihood is that he contracts COVID again. And with his health issues, does he survive?
77-year-old man has been in prison for 47 years. The prosecutor who prosecuted him has called for him to be released, saying, we fucked up. The only reason he's in prison is because the FBI doesn't want him out, because it would show that the FBI both mainly corruptly, put this Native American man in prison without any evidence. There were a whole lot of other irregularities in the trial, constitutional violations of Leonard Peltier. He should be out of prison, and reparations should be paid to him for the 47 years he has been in prison. I appreciate that Bernie, wrote to a constituent that Leonard Peltier should be released. How about publicly demanding the president use his clemency power? Biden ran on all these nice words to Native Americans, and we're going to do this and that for you. How about releasing the longest serving Native American, but just any political prisoner in the United States? It's insane. Absolutely insane. I don't know if I still have the comment, but Michael Cooper said, maybe they'll let him out to make room for Assange. So sad, but so true. So sad, but so true. And by the way, let's take a look here. And I didn't cover this because the hearings were going on while I'm live. In the January 6th hearings today, in addition to the Republicans that asked for pardons, again, I read them out to you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Jim Jordan of Ohio, Louis Gohmert, Mo Brooks. I'm probably forgetting one or two, but some well-known Republicans asked Trump for pardons. I wonder why. I'd like to see their text messages and communications. What were they asking for pardons for? Matt Gaetz apparently asked for pardons for anything and everything because he was basically a pedophile, having sex with teenagers. But essentially, in this hearing also, it was, we already kind of suspected this. It was confirmed that Trump asked the Department of Justice to seize the voting machines to basically change votes. So how is it that that is not a crime? That is not prosecuted. The president of the United States demanding that his Department of Justice seize the voting machines, right? Not to look at them, to change votes, but Leonard Peltier is languishing in prison in his final years. He had health problems before he got COVID. Now he got COVID. He's still suffering with long COVID symptoms. He can't be released. Julian Assange, for the crime of releasing and exposing war crimes, he's going to be imprisoned in the United States, very likely. Not to mention all the black people that languish in prison today because Bill Clinton and Joe Biden created the crime bill, which has black people still in prison for nonviolent offenses. I mean, I could go on and on.